Dobrý den, welcome to my new video. This video is going to be more practical. There will be very little theory and you will be working with me step by step on something that's called reported speech, specifically for the imperative. I already talked about both topics, about reported speech and imperative. But here I want to simplify it and I'm going to cover just one function of the language so that it's not overwhelming. It will be very useful for you. First, let's talk about what is reported speech. Here on the board, we have an example of direct speech, which is marked by quotation marks. In Czech, the quotation marks appear like this, which is different than in English. The marks are at the bottom and then they close the direct speech appearing on the top. These quotation marks, as you probably know, show us something that was said exactly. If you read a book, there will be lots of examples of direct speech with these quotation marks showing this is what the person is saying. If you want to say what that person said, you would not be using quotation marks anymore, and the form would also change, and that would be called the reported speech. In Czech, it is nepřímá řeč. This is přímá řeč, direct speech, and then it is nepřímá řeč, indirect speech. Ahoj, vítejte na mém kanále Czech by Zuzka, kde vám pomocí angličtiny vysvětluju českou gramatiku. So the direct speech here says vrať se. Someone tells us vrať se. Imagine a woman called Petra tells you vrať se, come back, vrať se. And then you tell this to your friend and you say, oh, you know what she said? She told me to come back. In English you say, she told me to come back. And in Czech you have two possibilities. You can say, řekla mi, ať se vrátím. And the second option is, řekla mi, abych se vrátil. The beginning is exactly the same. She told me. Then we have a comma that separates the clause, which has to be there in Czech. And then we have two types of connectors, ať and abych. I also spoke about this before. Ať has several functions, and one of those functions is when you want to use reported speech of something that was mentioned in an imperative form. And this is an imperative, is a command. Come back, vrať se. So the first option is to use ať, and then what would follow after would be either future tense, if that's a perfective verb, such as this one. This one is a perfective verb. Vrátit se. Vrátit se is a perfective verb. Or there could be also present tense, ať plus present tense, if that command, if that imperative was in negative. If you say don't do this, in Czech we almost always use imperfective verbs for this command in the negative form. So ať can be followed by the future tense or by present, but never past tense or conditional. Now, our second option is řekla mi, abych se vrátil, abych se vrátila. Depends who says this. Where we use abych. And the abych clause, which I also covered, is followed by past tense or part of the past tense. Something like she told me so that I would come back, which doesn't make sense in English. Both would be translated as she told me to come back. What is the difference between these two? Not really any difference. I also mentioned in one of my videos before that the only difference is that ať se vrátím is more connected to the present. So you make it sound like it just happened. It feels more as a direct speech, although it's not. And it feels as something that has just happened. Abych se vrátil, abych se vrátila is a little bit more distant. It all depends on the situation and on your feeling. As a student, you can think of these as interchangeable for this function. Let's see more examples. Now a sentence with a very similar verb. Imagine Petra is angry with you and then she says, don't come back anymore. Už se nevracej. I gave you this example so you would see that we are using the imperfective verb because this is negative imperative. Už se nevracej. Don't come back. anymore. So the form is vracet se, to be coming back. Before we had vrátit se, which was perfective. This one is imperfective. This won't change anything about these sentences, except that ať will be followed by present tense, if you remember. Let's do the reported speech. She told me not to come back. Řekla mi, ať. Ať will be followed by the present tense. First we use se. Ať se nevracím. That would be the present tense. Ať se nevracím. Now the second. Řekla mi, abych. And abych is followed by a part of a past tense. Abych se nevracela. This is the past tense, or part of it. Let's read these together. Už se nevracej. And if your friend asks you, what did she say? Co řekla? Řekla mi, ať se nevracím. Nebo řekla mi, abych se nevracel. And we will work on this together. Umyj si ruce, which means wash your hands. Umyj si ruce. And then your friend asks you, what did your dad say the first thing you came home after party? He told me to wash my hands. Řekl mi. And then first we will use ať. And don't forget the comma. Řekl mi ať. And then what else? First we will use si, because it's the second position from this clause. It has to be in the second position. Ať si. Now this is the verb umít. Umít si in this case. And it is perfective. So we will be using the future tense. We will say I will wash, which is umyju. Umyju. The rest, ruce. Ať si umyju ruce. Or umyji, which would be very formal. The second option would be with abych. Řekl mi abych. And do you remember what follows? We would use a part of a past tense. Řekl mi abych. Si again. Abych si umyl or umyla ruce. Once again, this was the future tense. And this was the form for the past tense. Let's read these together. Umyj si ruce. Co ti řekl táta? Řekl mi, ať si umyju ruce. Nebo řekl mi, abych si umyla ruce. There are two sentences which look so similar, but they are the opposites. Napiš mi, text me. Nepiš mi, don't text me. Very important. It would be a shame if you misread something like this. If you're up for it, please pause the video and think of the true options for each of the direct speeches. Imagine it's the same woman, Petra again. Petra mi řekla. Pause the video now and think about these options. Now let's work together. Petra mi řekla. Notice how the word order changes when you put a name here in front of the verb. Petra mi. Petra mi řekla. I'm gonna put it here. Our first option would be with ať. Petra mi řekla ať. Okay, we have to change the pronoun. Ať jí, because this is dative, to write to someone. And then this is perfective, napsat. So we would say I will write, which is napíšu. Ať jí napíšu. Ať jí napíšu. Or Petra mi řekla, abych, again jí, and then past form napsal, napsala. The future tense and the past tense. Now, nepiš mi, don't text me, don't write to me. Nepiš mi, nepsat, from psát, is imperfective. So this would be the same, ať jí, dative. Then we would be using the present tense. Ať jí nepíšu, ať jí nepíšu. Or Petra mi řekla, abych jí nepsal, nepsala. This was future, this is present, and this, as always, is the past form. Since we have a dative here, the dative case jí, and I also spoke about cases last week, and specifically the pronouns, I would like to remind you that my ebook, Just in Case, is still on discount until the end of this week, which is Sunday. This ebook, Just in Case, has been around for over a year, and it has been helping many happy learners. I would also like to say thank you to all of you who bought these books, and it will help you master the Czech grammatical cases. For example, the dative case. You can find it here. You can find how to identify it, what are the typical verbs. Like here, for example, on the page 109, you see napsat and psat takes the dative, write to someone. There are plenty of exercises here. And the study tables will show you how the cases change. The dative case here, for example, is showing you plenty of examples for the masculine, inanimate adjectives as well, feminine nouns, neuter nouns, and their adjectives. And also here we have some pronouns and numerals. This is for every case. So if you're thinking of purchasing it, you have 4 more days to enjoy the discount. Napiš mi. Petra mi řekla, ať jí napíšu. Nebo Petra mi řekla, abych jí napsala. Nepiš mi. Petra mi řekla, ať jí nepíšu. Nebo Petra mi řekla, abych jí nepsala. This time your dad's saying, neboj se. Neboj se means don't worry, don't be afraid. And nediv se. Don't be surprised, don't wonder why. This is very typical in Czech. To use this verb, the verb is divit se, to be surprised, to wonder why. So if something surprising happens, you say, divím se proč, or divím se proč se to stalo. I wonder, I'm surprised. And just like in the previous exercise, I would like you to work on this on your own if you're up for it. Again, give me 2 options for each of those direct speeches. Pause the video now if you want. Now, let's continue and work on this. Neboj se. We see it's a negative imperative, which means the verb bát se here is imperfective. We will use ať first. Táta mi řekl ať, then we use se, ať se, then we say nebojím. Nebojím is the present tense. Abych, táta mi řekl, abych se, and then we use the past tense, abych se nebál. In the past, this is actually regular. It's only irregular in the present. So this translates to, Dad told me not to be afraid, not to worry. Let's read this together. Neboj se. Táta mi řekl. We can also say táta mi řek. We can leave out the L. And I also have a video about that. Táta mi řekl, ať se nebojím. Nebo táta mi řekl, abych se nebála. And this one, nediv se. My dad told me not to be surprised. First option with ať. Táta mi řekl, ať se, again, ať se nedivím. This is present tense. Ať se nedivím. Or with abych and the past form. Abych se nedivila. Past tense. Clear? And like we say in Czech, jednoduchý jak facka. It's as simple as a slap in the face. That's what we say. Jednoduchý jak facka. Let's read this. Nediv se. Táta mi řekl, ať se nedivím. Nebo táta mi řekl, abych se nedivil. To je všechno. I didn't want to make this video overwhelming, and I think I accomplished that. If this video contained a lot of new information, I recommend you watch my videos where I covered this before. You will find all the links to all these videos in the description of the video, as well as the link of where you can buy my ebook, just in case, which you can also print it easily. And because summer is here, it doesn't mean anything for me because I also work. My work never stops unless I want it to, and I usually don't. However, I will take a little break from grammar videos such as this, and I will still meet you every Thursday, and I'll make very short videos, maybe 5-minute videos, focused on practical phrases on different topics. So for example, I'll teach you 10 phrases which are related to shopping. So if you have any suggestions for topics like this, you can also drop me a comment. To je ode mě všechno. Mějte se moc hezky a přeju vám nádherné léto. Ahoj!